In the vast land of Tianhua, the waters of Jiangnan, a broken small town stands quietly by the river in the misty rain. This is Qinghe Town, which was once a place with a prosperous literary style 100 years ago, with many books and gatherings of scholars. But now there are only a few ruined tiled houses and streets left. On the side of the town, an old house was about to collapse in the rain, and the word Linfu on the plaque at the door was blurred. Lin Shuxuan stood in the yard, holding a broken broom in his hand, and his eyes were empty at the yuyun beside the sky. He was only 17 or 18 years old, his face was beautiful and he carried a stream of mulberry that was inconsistent with his age. The blue shirt on his body turned white and his cuffs were still cushions, but his spine was straight, like a hairpin that was unwilling to be folded. Xian, don't be stunned. The firewood in it is not enough. Go to the back mountain to pick up some back. A sound of sand came from the house. It was Lin Shuxuan's mother, and the sound was full of fatigue. I understand, Mom. Lin Shuxuan responded, put down his broom, picked up the bamboo pear on the door, and walked towards the back mountain. His steps were heavy, and his heart seemed to be under pressure. 3 days ago, the official in the town suddenly entered the Lin family, saying that the ancestors of the Lin family had participated in the rebellion and were copied from the door. Although they later pardoned the death penalty, the family property was confiscated and was also a criminal citizen and would never be admitted. This is a different story to a book. Lin Shuxuan has been a famous child prodigy in Qinghe Town since he was a child. He is a 5-year-old and can be sensible at the age of 7. He wrote an article Jiangju at the age of 10 and was taken to the county to show off by the old master of the town. He said that he would become a great man. But now, the science and technology are hopeless and the family is in decline. The silver paper he has to take medicine to his mother is not bad, and he can only earn a meager income by raising firewood and copying books. On the back mountain, there were dead branches everywhere. Lin Shuxuan lowered his head and held firewood, and the brain was full of things that happen these days. He did not believe that his ancestors would be rebellious. The Lin family has been loyal and kind for generations, and his father even donated grass to the Great Yan Dynasty. Why was he suddenly labeled such a big shot? The more he thought about it, the less he was in a bad mood. He bit his teeth tightly and his fists were clenched. Someone must have framed our Lin family. He murmured softly, a cold light flashing in his eyes. But what can he do, a son of a sinner? Revenge? Even the doors of the county yamen cannot enter, so why bother to seek revenge? Just as Usi was thinking, a cold wind blew over, and a deep sound suddenly came from the forest, as if something was rolling deep in the forest. Lin Shuxuan glanced at his eyebrows and looked up. He saw only the shadows of the trees far away swaying, and there was no darkness rising. What's this? He felt nervous. Although he was not a martial artist, he also heard that there would be evil spirits coming out of here in the back mountain and he would harm people. He didn't dare to think too much, so he carried the bamboo mat and prepared to go down the mountain, but when he turned around, he stepped on a loose stone under his feet, and he stumbled into the bushes beside him. Oh! Lin Shuxuan fell to a 7-8-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6-8-6- pass through. It is pitch black inside, and there is a breath of Chen's ink. Why have you never seen this place? Lin Shuxuan rubbed his painful arm, and his curiosity was expelled. He hesitated for a moment, and then he dripped in. The hole was damp and cold, and the ground was covered with moss. After walking for a few steps, he suddenly kicked a hard object under his feet. When he looked down, he found that it turned out to be an old wooden box. The wooden box is carved with ancient patterns. Although it is old, it can be seen that the workmanship was exquisite that year. Lin Shuxuan moved, squatted down, and opened the box carefully. He saw a volume of broken ancient books lying inside, with a few vague big words written on the cover, 1xinc. Wenqin? Lin Shuxuan's eyebrows flipped through ancient books and saw that there were tadpoles like ancient Chinese. Although the words were blurry, each pen felt an inexplicable power. Although he had read a lot of books, he had never seen such words. But strangely, when his eyes swept over those words, a series of obscene words appeared in his brain. Taking the heart as the pen, and using the atmosphere as the ink, the righteousness of the heaven and earth gathers the atmosphere of the dynasty. Lin Shuxuan recited in a low voice, his voice getting lower and lower, and his eyes became brighter and brighter. Although I don't understand these words, every time I read it, his chest felt like a sensation flowing, and his fingers felt a little numb. At this moment, a scent of wind suddenly shaved from the cave, and the characters on the ancient books seemed to be alive, turning into golden lights, which suddenly dripped into his eyebrows. Lin Shuxuan only felt that his brain exploded, his eyes turned dark, and he fainted directly. It took him a lot of time to open his eyes and realize that he was still lying in the cave, and the ancient books in his hand had turned into a pile of ashes. What kind of ghost thing is this? Lin Shuxuan rubbed the sun's acupoint, and his heart was shocked and confused. Although he has read the book for many years, he has never heard of any Confucianism and Taoism, nor has he influenced the alienation of the air with poems. But the memory in the brain is extremely clear, as if it was born to be engraved in his bones. He looked down and found that there was an old-fashioned hair pen in his hand. There were fine dragon patterns on the pen, and a golden light was emitting from the tip of the pen. Although this pen looks ordinary, when held in his hand, it gives him an inexplicable sense of familiarity, as if it is connected with his own blood. Is this the sacred poem in the tradition? Lin Shuxuan's heart thumped, and a fragment of the memory appeared in the sea of his brain. In other words, the magazine from Confucianism and Taoism is to write the destiny of heaven with a sacred book and write the world's fortunes. But this kind of story is said that even the old masters in the town say it as a joke. How could it really appear in his hands? Before he could think about it, a sudden burst of footsteps came from outside the cave, accompanied by a few growlings. Search quickly. That kid will definitely not be able to run far away. Catch him and kill him on the spot. Lin Shuxuan's head was tightened and he hurriedly stuffed his hair into it, hiding behind a large stone in the hole with his hands and feet. It took a long time before several black-clad sluts came in, with a big knife in her head holding a cold look at her eyes. Head, there is a cave here, maybe that kid is hiding. A little brother said in a low voice. Search. Don't let him run away. The Lin family cannot keep the order issued by Mr. Murong. The man in black snorted coldly and signaled his subordinates to check. Lin Shuxuan hid behind the stone, not daring to breathe. Although he didn't know who these people were, he understood a few points when he heard the words Murong Shaolin. The Murong family was a magistrate of the Great Yan Dynasty. I heard that the current saints had to give them some slightest face. It was hard to tell the Lin family that they were really doing something behind their backs. The man in black searched closer and closer, and Lin Shuxuan's palms were covered in cold sweat. He knew he couldn't escape, and if he was caught, he would probably have no life. But at this moment, the hair in his mouth suddenly became slightly slim, and an inexplicable force surged into his heart, and a poem appeared in the sea of brain. The dragon and snake are astonishing the world. He read this sentence in a low voice, and the hair in his hand seemed to be inspired, and a faint golden light suddenly radiated. At the same time, the air inside the cave seemed to be moved by something, and a low bird was released. The men in black walked for a while, as if they were being pressed by something, and their faces became difficult to see in an instant. Head, this place is not in a match. Why do you feel so panicked? A little brother said, covering his chest and panting. Don't waste your time, look for someone. The man in black in the head gritted his teeth and sneered, but his sighs also broke out in cold sweat, as if he was being suppressed by an invisible force. Lin Shuxuan hid behind the stone, shocked her face. He didn't expect that what power could really be inspired by a lyrics he recited. But he didn't dare to think too much, and took advantage of the empty space in black that was pressed, sneaked out from the stone head and ran towards the entrance of the cave with his waist. He ran out of the cave and ran into a man in black. The other party was stunned and shouted, "Here, Catch him. Lin Shuxuan was panicked and ran away, but how could he, a book student, run away? Without running a few steps, a man in black fell from behind and fell heavily to the ground. Run? Run again, I will cut you with one knife. The man in black smiled, raised his sword and slashed at Lin Shuxuan. Lin Shuxuan's head slammed, closed his eyes and waited for death, but at this moment, a long distance suddenly came to an old shout, "Stop!" The sound was not loud, and it was like thunder. The knife in the man in black stopped in midair, as if it was being slapped by an invisible force. Lin Shuxuan opened his eyes quietly and saw an old man in white robe appearing far away at some point, wearing a hairy boy, holding a roll of books, and his eyes were as sharp as a knife. Old Master Baiyun? Lin Shuxuan was stunned and recognized the person. This old man was a scholar from Tianhua town. He said that he was an emperor of the previous dynasty. Although he had lived in seclusion for many years, the ministers of the town were very respectful of him. A few sluts dare to act wild under my nose? Old Master Baiyun snorted coldly, the book in his hand shook slightly, and a golden light flashed across it. The men in black seemed to have been hit by a heavy blow, vomiting blood and falling to the ground, and they didn't even have the energy to get up. Lin Shuxuan was stunned. This old master looked very nice to the young man, but he didn't expect that he had such great ability. Master Baiyun turned to look at him, his eyes were chaotic, and he opened his mouth, "Boy Lin, come with me, your energy is not something that these little ones can touch." Lin Shuxuan was soaked in water, but he knew that he had just regained his life, so he hurriedly got up and followed the old master to the downstairs. The hair in his eyes was slightly hot, as if it was foreshadowed, and a huge amount of hope was ignited in his heart, or perhaps, it was just the beginning. The wind of the mountain blew over and the shadows of the trees swayed. Among the men in black who fell to the ground, the leader of the head couldn't get up, took out a piece of jade talisman, and said in a low voice, "Shao, the matter has not been done." The boy of the Lin family was rescued by an old man, like the path of Confucianism and Taoism. A cold voice came from the jade talisman opposite, "Confucianism? Humph, a group of sour Confucianism dares to harm the little one? Tell the Black Shang people, take action, I want Lin Shuxuan's life and his secrets." Lin Shuxuan followed the old master Baiyun all the way to an old book garden outside the town. The old master pushed open the courtyard door and signaled him to go in. Then he closed the door and turned around and looked at him with a heavy lingering voice, "Boy, do you know that today's affairs are just an opening? The power of the sacred pen on you has long attracted the attention of countless horses." The power of the sacred pen? Lin Shuxuan was stunned, looked down at the hairpin in his head, and felt mixed emotions in his heart. He felt that his life had completely deviated from its original path. Master Baiyun pointed a little and said slowly, "The atmosphere of the Great Yan Dynasty was weak, and the powers were the ones who were in power, and you, perhaps the only one who could save all of this. But this road is extremely dangerous, can you be willing to go on?" Lin Shuxuan was silent for a moment, his mother's haggard face appeared in the sea of brains, and the injustice suffered by the Lin family. He held his hair tightly, his eyes firmly, "I do it. No matter how difficult it is, I will return justice to the Lin family." The old master was relieved and said, "Okay, from today on, I will teach you the secrets of Confucianism and Taoism, so that you can write the fate of this world with your pen and ink." As the sun sets west, the lights and fires in the book courtyard are swaying. Lin Shuxuan stands in front of the book, holding the sacred pen in his hand, and begins his first class. And far away, the wind is changing, a storm related to the dynasty's weather is quietly curling. The lights in the yard swayed slightly in the night wind, reflecting Lin Shuxuan's slightly thin figure. He stood in front of the book, holding the ancient sacred pen in his hand, with the ink fragrance swaying his nose, and he didn't dare to fall into his pen. Old Master Baiyun stood aside, with both hands on his back, his eyes as deep as an ancient well, and he looked at him calmly. "Boy, don't be stunned." The old master's voice was low, with a hint of impatientness. "The cultivation of Confucianism and Taoism is the most important thing in literary spirit. If you dare not write the first chapter, why would you inspire the heaven and earth?" Lin Shuxuan gritted his teeth, raised the tip of his pen, and found that his hands were shaking slightly. He has written countless articles since childhood, but at this time he was holding the sacred pendant, as if he was holding 1,000 pounds of weight, which made him unable to breathe. In the brain, the words of Wang Zinshu are constantly echoing, but he always feels that something is missing. "Teacher, I don't know what to write," he said in a low voice, his face full of confusion. Master Baiyan hummed, walked to the desk, picked up a roll of bamboo slips in his hand, opened it and then came to him. "Look at this Shana Ji, which was written by the great scholars of the previous dynasty. Every word and sentence is full of heaven and earth. You first imitate it, feel the artistic conception, wait for your heart to understand, and then fall into it." Lin Shuxuan followed the bamboo slips and read them carefully with his head. He only saw the words above, and each pen was like mountains, rivers and rivers flowing on the paper. He closed his eyes, and a vast country seemed to appear in the sea of brains, and there was a voice in his ears, a heat flowing in his chest, and the sacred pen in his hand also moved slightly. "Is this the literary heart?" he murmured, suddenly opened his eyes, lifted his pen, dipped it in full ink, and wrote the first word on the paper, Shan. As the tip of the pen fell, an invisible force scattered from the pen end. The air in the library seemed to solidify for a moment, and the lights lit up a few minutes. Old Master Baiyan was shocked and said, "It's not wrong. Although I'm a beginner, I've already had a few signs of atmosphere. Keep writing, don't stop." Lin Shuxuan's heart was excited, and his pen was constantly falling, and he gradually outlined a short article. As the last pen was completed, he felt his chest relaxed, as if he had taken off some heavy lifting, but he felt exhausted and filled his heart with sweat. The old master walked over, glanced at the words on the paper, and said lightly, "Entertain to the door." However, the cultivation of Confucianism and Taoism is not just as simple as writing words. You need to understand that the power of literary mind comes from heaven and earth, and comes from thousands of people. A single heart of courage cannot be a great achievement. Lin Shu was so tired that his arms were sore, but his eyes were so lit. He knew that this was just the beginning and the real road was still at the forefront. In the following days, Lin Shuxuan spent almost no time in the book garden, learning the secrets of Confucianism and Taoism with Master Baiyan. From the most basic imitation of ancient Chinese, to memorizing previous lyrics, to understanding the atmosphere of heaven and earth with literary heart, he desperately absorbed it like a sea every day. Although the old master is not arrogant, he is very attentive when teaching, and even spends his own energy to help him stabilize his mind. One morning half a month later, Lin Shuxuan was practicing calligraphy in the courtyard, and suddenly a rapid sound of footsteps came from afar. He looked up and saw a woman in plain clothes walking quickly into the yard, her eyebrows and eyes full of anxiety. The woman is not old, about 17 or 18 years old, with a clear appearance and gentle temperament, carrying a unique spirit in the Jiangnan water town. "Master Baiyan, Mr. Lin, something is wrong." The woman opened her mouth as soon as she entered the door, her voice crisp and uneasy. Lin Shuxuan realized that this was Su Wanqing, the solitary daughter of the Su family in Jiangnan. The family has guarded a prosperous dragon for generations and has some friendship with the bookhouse in Qinghe town. He quickly put down his pen and asked, "Miss Su, what happened?" Su Wanqing gasped and said anxiously, "The dragon on the ancestral land of my family suddenly shook last night, as if someone had been wielded. My father sent someone to investigate and found that an evil cultivator had entered. He tried to swallow the air. The situation is critical now. Master Lin, please help us." Old Master Baiyan walked out of the inner hall and heard this, his face darkened. "Evil cultivator? Humph, it must be the handwriting of that kid Murong Tiance. Over the years, he has relied on his power to rob and exorcise everywhere. It is no longer a secret. Boy, let me go there, this is your first trial." Lin Shuxuan felt nervous. Although he knew that this day would be coming early, he didn't expect it to be so fast. He clicked the head, held the sacred pen in his arms, hurriedly left the book courtyard with the old master and Su Wanqing, and headed towards the Su family's ancestral land. The Su family's ancestors are located in a mysterious valley in the south of the Yangtze River. They are surrounded by clouds. Looking far away, you can see a golden dragon shadow spinning in the mountains. It is the appearance of the air dragon. Lin Shuxuan still saw the scene with his eyes, and his heart was shocked and tight. He could feel that although the dragon shadow was amazing, its light was a little dim, as if it had suffered something reincarnation. At the entrance of the valley, several guards of the Su family were fighting fiercely with a group of men in black. In the shadow of the sword, you could hear a low smile. Lin Shuxuan looked closely and saw a thin old man in a black robe standing outside the battle circle, holding a bone staff in his hand, with black air scattered on the head of the staff, constantly absorbing the air around him. It's a black-style scattered man. Su Wanqing gritted her teeth and said in a low voice, "He is Murong Tiance's lackey, and he specializes in devouring air. I don't know how many people have harmed over the years." Master Baiyan snorted coldly, took a step forward, shook the book in his hand, and shouted, "Old hero, dark stylish, dare to act wildly in front of me, will you live?" The black sweet man turned over and showed a face full of snails. He grinned and his voice was as sandy as a broken box. "Single, Baiyan's old man, I haven't seen him for many years, and his temper is still so big. What a pity, how many people can you protect with this old bone? I'll swallow this dragon." Speaking of the sword, his bone staff was slapped, and a black air swept towards Master Baiyan like a poisonous snake. The old master was calm and the book in his hand was shining brightly, and the black air collided, shaking the rocks falling from the valley. "Boy, why are you still fucking me?" The old master shouted without looking back, "The dragon's atmosphere is weak. If you don't stay stable, the Su family will suffer. Use your literary heart to write a town-stressed article to help me with your help." Lin Shuxuan was shocked and hurriedly took out his sacred pen from his back, flying in the sea of mind to recall these lyrics and articles he had learned in the past few days. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes for a moment, then suddenly opened his eyes, dipped his pen tip into ink, and wrote the first word on the paper he carried with him. "Dragon." The pen fell like thunder, and a dragon roar came in the air. The dim dragon image was inspired, and the light lit up slightly. Lin Shuxuan bit his teeth and continued to write, "The mountains, towns and seas are swallowed by thousands of miles, protecting my garden, and the evil spirits disappear." A short article quickly took shape. With every word written, the atmosphere in the valley became more stable. The black and scattered face became more and more difficult to read. Finally, I couldn't help but roar, "Where's a hairy boy who dares to harm me? I'm looking for death." He slapped his bone staff and a black air rushed straight into Lin Shuxuan. Lin Shuxuan was panicked and couldn't hide. He could only watch the dark air approaching. But at this moment, Su Wanqing suddenly rushed over, and a jade flute in her hand slapped in front of her, forcing her to blow the black air. "Young Master Lin, finish writing soon." Su Wanqing's face turned pale, and she obviously suffered a very unscrupulous injury. Lin Shuxuan felt hot, gritted his teeth and lifted his pen, writing the last sentence, "The dragon is made of dragons, and the world is in a state of justice." As the last pen fell, a wild wind suddenly shaved from the valley. The dragon shadow suddenly roared, and the golden light burst out, directly shocking the black wind scattered several steps back. The black Shan man covered his chest, his face full of reluctance, glared at Lin Shuxuan fiercely, "Good boy, I have remembered you. This account will be counted in the coming day." After speaking, his figure flashed, turned into a group of black air, and quickly escaped. The valley finally returned to its tranquility, and the Su family's caregivers relaxed their voices and cast their gratitude to Master Baiyan and Lin Shuxuan. Su Wanqing held the jade flute, stood up straight, and smiled at Lin Shuxuan. "Mr. Lin, thank you very much. If it weren't for your town dragons, my Su family would have been in trouble today." Lin Shuxuan slammed his hand, wiped the sweat from the bottom of his head, and smiled bitterly. "Miss Su is polite. I also wrote this kind of thing in my heart, almost exhausted myself." Master Baiyan walked over and patted his shoulder, with a few praises in his language. "It's good. You can calm down a dragon when you first take action, which is enough to see your talent. However, this black-spread man is just a dog of Murong Tiance, and the real trouble is still behind you. Although your article has saved the Su family, it has also exposed your strength. Next, I am afraid that more people will target you. Lin Shuxuan's heart sank, knowing that the old master said it was right. His move was equivalent to telling the world that he had an insignificant secret. But he did not regret it. If he did not save the Su family, the dragon would be swallowed, and the territory of Jiangnan would probably have a charcoal. Master, I'm not afraid. He held the sacred pen, his eyes firmly. No matter who Murong Tiance or who, as long as he dares to come, I will use this pen and fight them to the end. The old master clicked the head and didn't say anything more. He just turned his head and looked at the faraway sky and murmured, "The wind is coming. I'm afraid the mainland of Hua is going to be in trouble this day." A few days later, the news about the Su family's ancestral land left unlovable, and the discussions were being discussed everywhere in Jiangnan. A Han-Men student who was not well received was able to calm down his air with a piece of literature, and even forced the evil practitioners to retreat and the black-style scattered people. Some were surprised and some were suspicious, but more people began to secretly inquire about Lin Shuxuan's arrival. At the same time, in the capital of the Great Yan Dynasty, Murong Tiance was sitting in the main seat, playing with a jade pendant in his hand, his face so dark that it could drip out of water. Under the hall, the black-spread man lowered his head, and his voice trembled and reported the affairs of Jiangnan. "Young man, Lin Shuxuan is indeed a little bit of a doorway. He is powerless and cannot swallow that dragon." Before the Black Shan snorted, he was knocked out by Murong Tiance with a cold snorting. "Baozi!" Murong Tiance suddenly threw the jade pendant to the ground, his eyes swept over the black and scattered people like a knife. "Can a cold door student let you fall into the head? Confucianism and Taoism? Humph, a group of sour Confucianism can make things happen by writing a few words? I want to see how many pounds of Lin Shuxuan are there." He stood up, walked to the window, looked at the imperial palace far away, and a sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth. "The heir of Dian is already the one in my pocket. Lin Shuxuan, if you know each other, you will actually hand over the sacred book. Otherwise, I will definitely tell you not to live or die." On the other hand, Lin Shuxuan didn't know that he had been seen by Murong Tiance as a star in his eyes. After returning to Qinghe town, he did not slacken, but instead practiced Confucianism and Taoism even harder. Master Baiyan told him that the matter in Jiangnan was just a small test of the bull knife. The real test was the Wenxin Tower trial that was about to arrive. The Wenxin Tower is the holy land of Confucianism and Taoist practitioners. The old master said quietly in the book garden, and the teacup in his hand was full of heat. The tower contains the Wenxin seals left by countless previous treasures. Only those who are truly talented can reach the top, receive the blessing of the qi, and even get the true recognition of the sacred pen. But this trial is abnormal, and I don't know how many talented men fall into it every year. If you want to go, you need to make all preparations. Lin Shuxuan heard it, looking forward and nervous. He knew that this was his own chance to prove his strength and the first step towards Confucianism and Taoism to sacred. He lowered his head and looked at the sacred pen in his hand and murmured, "No matter how difficult it is, I will try it. I will use this pen to change it one by one if the Lin family is in trouble." The night was getting deeper, and the lights in the yard were still lit. Lin Shuxuan buried his head and read hard, and kept recalling the words of one Xinc in the sea of brain. Far away, the mountain winds were waving, as if it was a sign that a bigger storm was about to come. And at the center of that storm, he will challenge the fate of the Great Wall this day as a book student. The night is as dark as ink, and the cold wind in the surrounding area shaves like a knife and brings up the yellow sand all over the sky. In the northwest border of Tianhua mainland, this place called Dragon Ridge has been the junction between the Great Yan Dynasty and the alien race since ancient times. Under the Dragon Ridge, the war was filled with fire, and the shouts of killing were deafening. The guards of the Dian clans faced each other head-on. In the sword light, blood stained the yellow sand. Lin Shuxuan stood on the highest mountain in the Dragon Ridge, holding the ancient sacred pen in his hand, and his blue shirt was a key to the sound of the song in the wind. His face was white, and there was still a blood on the corner of his mouth, which seemed to have suffered uneven injuries. Beside him, old Master Baiyun sat on his knees, and the book in his hand was emitting a faint golden light, which was barely supporting a barrier of air, resisting the heavy air emitted by the alien army below. Su Wangqingji stood far away, holding a jade flute, and the sound of the flute was leisurely. She tried to calm the atmosphere of the soldiers guarding the Dayan army with her music, but her sighs was filled with sweat, which was obviously at the end of the strong crossbow. Zhu Tian, the dragonflies are just under the ridge. If it is captured by the alien race, the dragonflies collapse, and the Great Yan flies will scatter all the way. The world will be in trouble. Old Master Baiyun's voice was low and he was anxious. Do you still have enough effort to write the last poem in the book? Lin Shuxuan looked down at the sacred pen in his hand. The golden light on the tip of the pen was already dim and was almost about to go out. He knew that this was because in his previous battles, he continued to use his literary heart to guide the power of heaven and earth, and exhausted the power of the sacred pen to save. At this moment, his literary heart was as dry as oil. If he was not careful, he might have to spend his entire life. But he raised his head and looked at the golden dragon shadow under the ridge, and then at the bloody warriors of the Great Yan, with a flash of determination in his eyes. Master, I can write it. He gritted his teeth, and his voice was extremely light. If I don't protect this world, who will come to protect it? The revenge of the Lin family and the destiny of the Dayan. I will use this pen to write a conclusion. Master Baiyun looked at him deeply, with both gratitude and unbearable eyes in his eyes, and finally he said, Okay, I will protect you and do my last breath to help you complete this talk of heaven. But remember, if things cannot be done, you must be strict in saving your life. Su Wanqing stopped the sound of the flute and turned to look at Lin Shuxuan, her eyes filled with grief. Mr. Lin, are you really going to do this? Your injuries. Wanqing, there is no need to say much. Lin Shuxuan smiled at her, with a tired and silence in his smile. From the moment I held this pen, I knew that there was no way out of this road. Today, if I could hold the dragon, I would have no regrets even if I died. Su Wanqing's eyes turned red, bit her lips and stopped talking, but just quietly retreated aside, and the jade flute in her hand rose again. The sound of the flute was even more sad than before, as if she was seeing Lin Shuxuan off. Lin Shuxuan took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and recalled the kinds of things he had walked along the way in his brain. From the broken Lin mansion in Qinghe town, to the book house of old Master Baiyun, from the dragon fight of the Su family in Jiangnan, to the trial of Wenxin Tower, to the life and death dispute with Murong Tiance, every scene is as clear as a knife carving. He once beat Murong Tiance with an articled Dingwa chapter, which condensed part of the atmosphere of Dayan. But who would not have expected that the real Black Hand was not Murong Tiance, but the kings of these alien races? They have been trapped for many years, and they are not only the dragon of Dayan, but also the foundation of the entire Tianhua formation. The king of the eccentric clan. Lin Shuxuan murmured, suddenly opening his eyes, and a fire ignited in his eyes. He picked up the sacred pendant, dipped it in full ink, and the tip of the pen was swaying on the sacred paper. Although his hands were shaking, he felt an unyielding will. Haven's poem, rise. He shouted softly, and the tip of his pen finally fell. The first word exploded like thunder, heaven. As this word was formed, the sky above the dragon ridge suddenly became dense, and the lightning and electric exchange seemed to be astonished by this thought. Lin Shuxuan bit his teeth and continued to write the second word, ground. As soon as the word heaven and earth came out, the atmosphere above the mountains suddenly changed, and an invisible force scattered from the Xian paper, turning into golden lights, surging into the sky. The alien army under the lunar seemed to feel this force, and raised its head toward Shan Yuan, with a look of shock in its eyes. The leader of the alien king, a giant Tan dressed in black armor and with double horns, suddenly slapped the battle spear in his hand and roared, "What's the hell that book student is doing? Kill me up the mountain and cut off his pen." The alien army rushed towards the mountain turret like a tide, but old Master Baiyun snorted coldly, and the golden light in his hand shone brightly, forming a huge barrier, keeping the mountain turret dense and unobstructed. Although he was old, he was as arrogant as a rainbow at this time and forced himself to seize the first wave of attacks. Xian, I can still bear to write your poems," the old master said with a sound of sand, and blood was pouring out of the corners of his mouth, which was obviously a strong suffocation. Lin Shuxuan felt ache in his heart, and he knew that the old master was using his life to fight for him. He did not dare to be distracted, and kept penacing, falling down word by word. Man will conquer the sky, swallow mountains and rivers, penis will be a sword, and he will be as evil as evil. Every time he wrote a word, his face turned pale, the power of his literary mind came out like a dam, and the dragon patterns on the sacred pen began to fade. But at the same time, the thunder clouds above the mountain became more and more dense, and there were several virtual figures appearing from the clouds. Those were the names of the Great Yan Dynasty in history, wearing war armor and holding long spears, with a magnificent atmosphere, as if they had walked out of history and arrived at the present war. "Is this a famous virtual movie?" Suan exclaimed in surprise, her eyes filled with shock. She knew that in the saints of Confucianism and Taoism, there was indeed a record of summoning Shi Yingling with poems, but even Master Bai Yin had never done such a method. Lin Shuxuan actually touched the realm of Confucianism and Taoism in this life and death. The king of the alien race under the lunar face finally changed. He roared angrily, rushed towards the mountain, and the war spear in his hand emitted a black air, trying to destroy the air barrier in one stroke. But at this moment, the famous silhouettes in the sky shouted anger, and the long spear in his hand turned into a stream of light, stabbed straight down, forcing the attack of the king of the strange race. What should we die? Confucianism and Taoism? The king of the alien clan gritted his teeth, his black hair stormed violently, and his fierce exchanges with the famous movie, shocking the entire mountain shattering in the Longlu area. Lin Shuxuan certainly did not look at the battle below, and there were only the last few poems left in the brain. He knew that this honoring the heavenly poem was the ultimate thing he learned in his life. If he could not finish it in one go, he would not only be unable to hold on to the dragon, but he and the people around him would be buried here. He bit his tongue and used a piece of blood to stimulate himself to stay awake, and his penis speed suddenly accelerated. The dragon will never be strong, and the country will prosper forever. Heaven and earth are the evidence. I will engrave the sky. After the last sentence fell, Lin Shuxuan suddenly slammed the pen, and the golden light shone on the pen. The whole poem seemed to be alive, turning into a huge golden shadow, slid into the sky, and then he rushed towards the alien army under the rim. Still. The golden sword shadow fell to the ground, and a huge shock that broke out. The alien army was torn open a huge gap by this blow. Many alien warriors were swallowed by the sword, and they could not even be released and turned into ashes. The king of the alien race had a bad experience, roared angrily, resisted the famous movie and then turned into a group of black air, fled quickly, and surrendered his remaining subordinates regardless of whether they were concerned. The battleground under the lunar area turned back in an instant, and the soldiers of the Dying Guards were greatly aroused. They took advantage of the counterattack and killed the remaining alien troops to fail to defeat the troops. The golden dragon shadow that was flying in the air also roared a long roar at this moment, and the light shone brightly, as if it had been injected into the living machine again. The plate swirled over the dragon shore, protecting this border area. Above the mountain, Lin Shuxuan finally finished writing the last pen. The sound of the sacred pen in his hand broke and turned into a pile of powder, dissipating. He could no longer hold back his body, and fell to the ground while stumbled, blood flowing from the corners of his mouth. His breath was so weak that he could hardly hear it. Xian. Su Wanqing was shocked and hurriedly rushed over to support him. The purified water couldn't stop flowing down. How could you be so stupid? The sacred poem was broken, your literary heart. Old Master Bai Yin also walked over slowly, looked at Lin Shuxuan in a complicated face, and said in a low voice, "Boy, you did it." As soon as the legend of heaven was released, the alien tribes retreated and the dragon was protected. You are worthy of being the Confucian and Taoist sacred. But this generation of price. Lin Shuxuan smiled hard, and his voice was as weak as if it was silenced in the wind. "Teacher, gentle, don't worry, don't worry. I'm not dead yet, but the sacred poems are broken, and my literary mind is almost exhausted. I'm afraid that in a short period of time, I can't write anything." He lowered his head and looked at the pencil left in his hand, and his eyes were filled with reluctance. This pen accompanied him through countless reigns, from Qinghua town to Zhongliu, witnessing his growth in the ups and downs of the great swallow's heir. Now that he was lost, he didn't have much regrets because he knew that this battle was worth it. "Su Xian, you have a good rest. The dragon has been stable. The great swallow's heir can last for at least 100 years. Old Master Baiyan sighed and turned to look at the faraway sky. "But, the king of the alien race has not died. Even though he retreats, he will definitely be reborn. And Murong Tiance, even though he has been defeated by you, his ambition has not yet been reduced. I am afraid he is still planning something in secret." Lin Shuxuan pointed a little, reluctantly supported himself, leaned on Su Wanqing's shoulder, and looked far away. "I know that the world has not been peaceful in this world. But as long as I still have a breath, I will not let them succeed. Confucianism and Taoism are the most sacred, not only to write poems, but also to protect the belief of this mountain and river." Su Wanqing held his hand lightly, her eyes filled with determination. "Young Master Lin, no matter what the future ahead, my Su family, and the atmosphere of Jiangnan will be with you." Master Baiyan was silent for a moment, and finally smiled. "Good boy, I haven't taught you in vain if I have this kind of heart. Next, you need to take good care of your thoughts. Although your literary mind is exhausted, it may not be impossible to reunite. The road to Confucianism and Taoism is far from this." The wind on the mountain shore stopped, and the nitrazine at the battleground slowly dissipated. Under the dragon shore, the soldiers of the Dian began to clear the slaughter. Some sang military songs loudly, and some erected monuments for the comrades who died in the war. The golden dragon shadow plate of airborne dragons spires in the sky, like guarding this land that is fighting fire. Lin Shu looked at everything mysteriously, his chest undulating slightly. Although his body was so weak that he could hardly move, a new hope ignited in his heart. He knew that this battle was just a temporary victory, and the real challenge was still at the back. The shadow of the king of the alien race, Murong Tiance's ambition, and even more unknown crises are waiting for him. "Teacher, Wanqing, help me," he said in a low voice. Although the sound was weak, it felt stubborn. "I also want to see how beautiful the dragon under the dragon ridge is." Su Wanqing and the old Master Baiyan looked at each other and did not stop him anymore. They worked together to help him up. The three of them stood in the mountain ridge, looking at the shadow of the golden light shining under the ridge. The sunlight penetrated the cloud layer and blew on them, as if they were painting a short talisman for this battle of life and death. Far away, a dark shadow quietly flashed across the horizon, like the breath left by the king of alien races, or like a new storm being curled. But Lin Shuxuan was no longer afraid at this time. He knew that as long as the literary heart was not refreshed, this sacred chant would one day rewritten the fate of the great land of Tianhua in another way.